Hi, my name is Abby Huntley, and I worked at Heath Elementary School for my co-op, which is one of the public schools in the Brookline Public School District. The school is a pre-K to 8 school, so there's a very wide variety of students and age groups all in the same building, which is something I'd never experienced before. My position as listed on the COOL website was instructional aide, and it paid $10 an hour. The COOL description didn't explain it very well. It pretty much said I would be working as an instructional aide in a classroom, didn't tell me what grade, and that was really all there was to it. But it ended up being a lot more complicated and complex than that. I wasn't just in one classroom all day long. But in the interview, the expectations about that were made very clear. They even provided me with the schedule of the previous co-op so that I could see what an average day would look like, which was really cool. So on a daily basis, my schedule would change dramatically, but there was some structure to it. In the morning, I would oversee the students who were eating breakfast before school, and then I would go to a third grade classroom and assist that classroom teacher in the running and management of her class. I would conduct responsive classroom morning meetings, I would teach lessons, and I would also do the simple things like make copies for her or cover when she needed to use the bathroom or if she had a meeting. So then I had recess duty for the 3rd through 6th graders, and then I supervised a 5th grade class during lunch. The cafeteria was under construction for most of my time at Heath, so the students had to eat lunch in their classrooms. So I was with one of the 5th grade classes while they did that, while they ate in their classroom. Then towards the end of the day, I would go back to the 3rd grade class, and then I would have bus duty. And then 3 days a week, I volunteered to run a homework club after school for 6th through 8th graders, which was really fun. It paid $16 an hour. So it wasn't required of me. They asked if I was willing to do it for 1 day a week, and I said yes, and then it ended up being 3 days a week. But I really wanted to do it, especially because I knew I wasn't going to be able to sub a lot of the older grades that much. I only subbed 6th grade, I think, twice, and I never subbed for 7th and 8th. So this gave me a chance to get to know a lot of the 7th and 8th graders. So they had to sit and they had to do their homework for an hour. But we had conversations, we got to know each other, and of course I helped them with any homework that they needed assistance with. So that was my average day, from 7:30 to 2:50 or till 3:30 on days that I had homework club. But this wasn't always what happened. So some days I would be in the office all day, because the secretary was sick or something, or I would be subbing a class all day, or I would be covering multiple teachers throughout the day for meetings, especially when IEP meetings were going on. So every day at Heath was challenging. You have to be flexible. Working in a school is a circus in good ways and bad. So if you're not flexible, there's no way that you can leave at the end of the day and really want to come back the next. But I think that I was really successful in this. I was always really excited to go to work. There were days where I was thrown around like a doll, when there was just so much coverage that was needed that I was getting calls, it felt like every 20 minutes to tell me to go somewhere else, and where I didn't even have time to eat my lunch. But then there were also days where I had little to do outside of my usual routine. And then on top of that, there were days where I had to sit in the office all day and simply answer the phone. So it changed a lot, but it was never too much, and I really was always ready for it. And I enjoyed those experiences because I knew going into this job that there was going to be a lot of flexibility required, and I'm going to continuously talk about flexibility during this. But during my interview, that was stressed, so I knew that I was going to have to change my schedule a lot. And I knew that that was going to be a major requirement in this position. But I had so much fun with it. It never got boring, and I ended up learning a lot. I didn't know how to teach 5th grade math on my first day at work, but that was something that I got to learn how to do. And the classroom teacher I worked with on a daily basis in the 3rd grade also provided me with many opportunities to take over in the classroom and run things like those morning meetings. So by the end of my co-op, I felt confident going into almost any situation, and I felt like I could sub any class successfully and do really anything asked of me pretty well, which was an attitude I didn't have going into this experience. My self-confidence has skyrocketed, and I feel way more able, really, to be a teacher and to further my career because of my experience in this co-op. So by the end, I really felt like an integral part of the team. My vice principal told me that I'd really grown into the position and that it seemed like I'd been there for years. I had answers to questions that I didn't really need to have the answers to, and I was always there for the teachers when they needed me. Many of them trusted me to substitute their classes and even requested me to be their subs because I knew their students, I knew what needed to be done, and I knew what was expected both of me and of their students. So because of this, my duties absolutely grew as I spent more time at Heath, but that really only happened because I was flexible and because I let it be known that I was willing to do more than initially expected. So even when I was asked to do something that I didn't particularly want to do, I always said yes. I was enthusiastic, and I strove to do the best that I could at each of those tasks. So I ended up doing things that weren't really required or expected of me because my supervisors knew that I would say yes. They trusted that I would do anything really asked of me, and they respected me for that. So I ended up learning and accomplishing a lot more than I would have otherwise. So as I got more comfortable being there, the things I was asked to do not only increased in number, but they became more challenging and more independent. So instead of saying, go to this room and help the teacher do this, I would go to this class and take over for 3 hours while the teacher leaves the building for a meeting. So I ended up learning a lot, and I became more comfortable with the staff, with the technology, and also with the students, which was clear to my supervisors because by the end they weren't asking me, do you think you'd be okay if I asked you to do this? They were saying, do you have the time to do this? So during my time at Heath, I hoped to learn the day-to-day functioning of an elementary school. I wanted to see how a school runs on a daily basis. And I also wanted to determine what age group I most wanted to work with. These aren't things I just hoped to learn, though. I expected to learn them because we discussed that aspect of it during my interview. I was asked what I hoped to get out of the experience, and then they told me what they thought I would get out of it, which ended up being really helpful in deciding where I wanted to accept an offer, because I knew when they offered me the job what to expect at this co-op. But when I first started, I was really, really stressed. I missed the first 2 weeks of work due to an illness, so I needed to learn the routine and the simple things that I would have already had mastered if I hadn't been sick. So I was stressing myself out, and I was rushing through things to try and get them accomplished. But as I got to know my colleagues and supervisors, I became more comfortable confiding in them and simply saying, I don't know how to do this, can you help me? They expect there to be a learning curve, and they really hope that we'll ask when we don't understand how to do something. Everybody knew that I hadn't been in this position for years. They have co-ops at Heath all the time, so no one really expected me to have everything mastered immediately. And once I understood that, and that they really were there to help me, and that it wasn't a scary thing to ask for their help, I used them as a resource, and my level of stress by the end of my co-op was almost zero. So when I was sick and when I was making all these mistakes while learning all the things I had to do, I didn't get fired because I was constantly talking to my supervisors and the teachers in the school, getting feedback, correcting my mistakes, and also because of my interview. They knew based on how I interviewed that I was capable of doing this job and that I was a reliable, trustworthy person, and therefore that I wasn't flaking, but that I was actually sick. So that first impression made all the difference. I really think that I would have gotten fired otherwise. So my advice to anyone starting their co-op process would be to go into the interview like it's an interview for your dream job. Be respectful and enthusiastic, be dressed professionally, but most importantly, answer questions honestly. You don't want to just say something because it's what you think they want to hear. For instance, it was clear from my interview with Heath that they wanted me to be flexible, so I could have just said, I'm a very flexible person, I'm comfortable changing my routine, and I'm a quick learner, which is what I did say, but it could have been just what they wanted to hear, and a complete lie. So then when I got to the job and they saw that I wasn't those things that I said I was, that wouldn't have been good for either of us. So the fact that they knew that I wasn't lying, I think is really why I didn't get fired when I missed those first 2 weeks of co-op. Plus, I think that you should be doing a co-op that's going to help you get better at what you're already good at, not something that's asking you to do things that you're pretending to know how to do. And it has to be something that you're interested in. And so because of that, this co-op really helped me decide what I want to do for my career, 100%. I went in pretty lucky because I already knew that I wanted to be a teacher, and I thought that I knew what grade I wanted to teach as well, kindergarten. But what this job did for me was give me experience with different grade levels so that I could really figure out what grade I want to teach. So I spent some time in kindergarten classes, and while the kids were adorable, I ended up actually having more fun with the older kids, like the 6th graders, who I could talk to more intellectually, and then where the focus wasn't on developing social skills, but more on academic ones. So I left the co-op wanting to teach the 6th grade, which was super helpful because I have to student teach next year, and now I know to be placed at a higher grade level than I would have requested had I not been at Heath, which will really help me when I'm in student teaching, and it'll make that more effective and more helpful for my career as a teacher. I also took a class during summer 1 while I was on co-op, and everything I was learning was applicable to my experience, and vice versa. I used examples from my work in class every day, and having those experiences in the school provided to be extremely valuable and useful for my education classes. You know, having that real-world experience of co-op helped me not only to determine if that's really what I want to do with my life, but it also helped me apply course concepts and understand that, you know, what we learn in class is actually important, and it can help us later on in our careers, which is something that, you know, our professors tell us all the time, but co-op really shows you that that's true. So my time at Heath was the best and most enjoyable time and experience that I've had at Northeastern, and I'm so glad I did it. I learned a lot, and I really think that I'm a better person for it, and I think that I'm more ready and able to be a teacher because of this experience. So this was my reflection. Thank you for watching.